You're listening to the Salty Sex Cast with Mariah and friends. Minimize the fear. Expand your awareness.
Welcome back, all you sexy souls. It's Mariah here, and I have a new friend I'm so excited to introduce you to. This is a friend who also has a really cool podcast, and I am excited to highlight the work of DB, or Danielle. Some people know her by both. So say hi.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Danielle, also go by DB. As Mariah said, pronoun she, her. I, have a background in sex education, and I also am the showrunner, creator, producer, host of the Sex Ed with DB podcast. And we're a feminist podcast bringing you all the sex ed you never got through unique and entertaining storytelling, really centering LGBTQ and BIPOC experts. And I am super stoked to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for being the voice of those who usually get quieted. Just the background of your podcast. That's really, really cool that you guys center around that, the feminists and BIPOC population. You know, that's definitely ones that get overlooked or just don't have enough of a voice. So thank you for being that.
Yeah, I feel very lucky to learn alongside folks who are complete and total experts and have this amazing perspective, whether that be if they are in the field of research, or they are a sex worker, or they are a teacher or an educator, or an activist. There are so many different kinds of voices that we're lucky to have on the show. And I'm really, again, lucky to be here today. So thank you.
Oh, that's awesome. So, we were chatting about, hey, the topic that you and I are always struggling on, right? Being a podcast is one thing, but having a social media presence is another thing, So
yes,
a couple platforms you're trying to keep up to date. But then we have this big piece of what our message actually is, and it actually gets silenced because of social media. So you are always fighting against censorship. I'm always fighting against censorship. And you've actually kind of gotten creative with your newest project, which I thought was so great. I was like, yes, I know what it is because I watched TikTok, but if I didn't, I probably would have been a little lost.
yes.
So that's the Segs Ed show. So it's supposed to be a play on sex ed, but you can't have sex written on social media anywhere. So it's like eggs with an S at the beginning.
Exactly. You got it completely correct. Yes, I'm glad that you're saying that you're on TikTok, because as us fellow educators on TikTok know, like the word sex in the beginning of, the popularity of the app, like a year and a half ago, when a lot of people got on it in the beginning of COVID, you could use the word sex. I remember my first couple videos, are all about sex education with normal spelling and normal hashtags, that, I felt super good about that content and was excited that I finally found a platform that I was able to not be censored on. And yet, of course, they always, change the algorithm. Eventually they catch on, because they're not able to differentiate between sex education and, pornography or inappropriate images. It's kind of a mix of like bots and real life people who are clearly not trained in how to make sure that young people are getting access to age appropriate information. And so because of that, because of the algorithm changing, and because of folks like me on TikTok getting shadow banned when we were using the word sex, when we were talking about periods, our content would be removed or deleted for violating community guidelines. And so we decided to say, screw it, and let's create an entire show that is kind of a nod to this reaction that TikTok is having, and call it the Segs Ed Show, because many sex educators were using the word segs, S-E-G-G-S, as you said, in order to kind of get around to circumvent those bans that we were experiencing. And so we were like, let's just make an entire egg themed video series and make a lot of egg puns and make it really silly and funny. And that's exactly what we did. And so, yeah, I'm really stoked and proud of the content that we put out for our first season of the show.
Oh my gosh, it's so cool. I watched a couple of them and I was like, you know that there's a team of dedicated folks who want that message out there that are working on it. Cause I was like, even like the little sound effects and like everything on there, I was just like, that's so fun. And of course, you know, when it's something like TikTok where it's 3 minutes maximum of your attention to bring you closer to a higher sense of education and just healthy sexuality. So that's really cool. So take a step back, I guess, a little bit and tell me what drew you to sex education in the first place?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I think that it's so funny because whenever I kind of share these stories, when folks ask this, they're kind of like the staple stories. And then in addition to that, it's like, what am I feeling like extra passionate about this week that I'm going to like add on to that? But
Love it.
I would say like the two main things. Number one, my mom is an OBGYN. And so when I was little, we really had a specific kind of comfort around vaginas and periods, and just really me understanding that like women's rights, reproductive rights, people's rights are paramount or super important. And that very much happens through education, through advocacy, through activism. And so that was kind of like the beginning of my journey of understanding how important this work was. And then there's another story I like to tell. I'll tell an abridged version of it just because it's a little long. But the year after I graduated from UC Berkeley for my undergrad, I went to Israel and taught for a year there. I taught English. And so my teaching cohort, we went to this super religious community in Jerusalem for a field trip one day. And the main rabbi was kind of like showing us around there, and we were chatting with him for hours, and he was talking about like his customs as an Orthodox Jewish man, and you know, just really sharing a lot about his life. And offhandedly kind of mentions, you know, he has 5 daughters, and when each of them reach the age of 17 or 18, they'll be married off by the matchmaker. They won't learn about sex until their wedding night when they have it, and they pray that they get pregnant on that night. And that was kind of like one fell swoop. And I, as like a 21-year-old who thought that that was garbage, like raised my hand and kind of like fought back a little bit in the moment of being like, what about what the hell they want? What about like their rights and their bodies? And what if they're not ready to be moms now or ever? Like I kind of said a bunch of questions, and he kind of just like, you know, waved me off and was like, this is just how it goes. And so ever since that moment, when I was 21, I like wrote a note that night in my phone about it, like really remembering. I was doing a thing back then where I was writing 1 sentence per day to like really remember, like a mini journal kind of.
I like that.
And yeah, and that happened in October of 2014. So that was just about 7 years ago. And so it was then that I kind of realized, okay, I want to make sex ed my life in some way. How do I do this? I knew I was really passionate about storytelling. And so it was then that I found Columbia's Masters of Public Health program with a, you know, certification in sexuality and reproductive health. And I knew I wanted to go to grad school. And so here we are 7 years later. I did a couple jobs in between that moment and grad school, and was in the sex tech field doing content and digital storytelling, and also teaching a little bit. And so fast forward, I graduated from Columbia in May of 2020 last year with my Master's of Public Health, and have been doing my podcast for about 4.5 years, and recently started doing it full time. So it's been quite a journey, and I'm learning more and more in the sex ed field every day from experts that I have on and from colleagues in the field, and feel very lucky to be doing this work full time. It's really awesome.
Oh, that's so awesome. What a fun story, and how, you know, little interactions really do drive us. I love the one sentence journal because I feel like I need to journal and then I just kind of get overwhelmed. So where do I start? And so then I just don't. Maybe that's my podcast. It's, journal to the world. But the one sentence that leaves a lot
It's
of
doable, right?
pressure off. Right. Yeah. So have your master's degree and everything and then been going through, and the storytelling piece is a really interesting too, because again, we can go and talk about anatomy, physiology, and the do's and don'ts of human sexuality and connection and everything under the sun. But unless you actually tell it in a way that's entertaining and relatable, it's off, it's done. And that's why a lot of people probably fizzle in this, niche market, I guess we have of adult sex education. So it's really cool that you're putting all of your background together in something that society really, really needs.
Yeah, thank you. I think like the Segs Ed show is really like a marriage of kind of like my passion for like, performing and entertaining, and also like using our platform to educate folks on all of these topics that we were so excited to talk about, whether it be understanding trans healthcare or normalizing periods or loving lube. Like there are so many things out there that we were able to cover, even though, our format was like 4 1-minute parts per episode. So it was just like 1 minute of like, okay, a little bit of fun facts, myth busting, history, information. So it's been really, really fun.
That's awesome. Any specific trends that you're seeing? So like you said, you got on TikTok, you were like, freedom, love it. We can finally have a platform to tell people about all of this. And then wah, wah, wah.
Yeah.
That was a trend in itself. But anything else you're kind of seeing as you're going through and doing research, preparing your message, all those things?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because there are some sex toy companies out there who are somehow doing really, really well on TikTok. I think like they're still getting flagged, they're still getting community guidelines warnings, they're still getting their content removed. Like that's not happening to them, but their videos are getting millions and millions of views, and they're doing it in this way that they don't have to have the sex toy in the video, but they're using euphemisms, they're changing their language, the text on screen that they use. They are usually very funny, very quippy, short, silly videos. And so I think like that has been really, really awesome. I've also noticed that my videos at least get a lot more views when I duet other people who are doing really popular stuff. So I think it's been a fun way to like collaborate with other sex educators and try to figure out, how to really make our content blow up, right? Because it's really easy for a makeup artist, right, who already has millions of views or can easily gain millions of views because they're really likable, to continue on that path because their content's not getting flagged, right? Like they're not getting any inappropriate messaging from TikTok that they have to change their content, because sometimes people's profiles and handles just outright get deleted, like without warning. And that sucks. Like that would really suck for me as someone who's depending on that in order to make an income, in order to do advertisements or whatever kind of income that I'm doing. And so I think like really looking at other sex educators and seeing what they're doing in order to really get around those community guidelines, including, like I mentioned, short videos, hashtags that are trending rather than hashtag sex education. Like you got to kind of be sneaky on the platform in order to have your content blow up.
You have to act like a predator to avoid getting banned because of they're trying to ban those predators that are out there. Like that's what is so silly is we're the effort is completely blowing up. Like it's wrong place, wrong time. Try again.
Yeah, like if only people who are looking at these videos were trained, or like my idea that I had was like, why can't there be an age filter? Like, why can't I check a box that says this content is not appropriate for people under the age of 16. Like, I feel like that would be such an easy fix. Like, TikTok has people's birthdays, like they have ways of confirming their ages. Like, why am I responsible for making you, TikTok, believe that sex ed is an important topic to teach young people? Like, it just feels so backwards.
Why are we doing all of the uphill battle who are teaching healthy relationships, communication, human sexuality, doing all of the work when just as easy, Teen Timmy can come over here and hop onto Pornhub for his education, and that's 2 clicks away versus all the roundabout way we're trying to just get healthy messages out. Oh,
Yeah,
so frustrating. It's
really
infuriating.
backwards. And like, TikTok will often keep videos that are inappropriate, that are like, that don't have a value, that are just, the sounds are inappropriate, or they're offensive, or there are misogynists who talk. Like, I saw a video of Jordan Belfort. I don't know, that guy from Wolf of Wall Street, like who Wolf of Wall Street is based on. He's like talking about 18-year-old and 17-year-old girls and like sexualizing them. Like, and those videos have millions of views. Like, why is that the content that gets to stay on the platform?
The predatory messaging, just everything out there. Yes, it's so frustrating. And just like you said, it is untrained people or algorithms that are picking this up. And simply saying, hey, I'm a sex educator, can sometimes help you not get completely deleted, but doesn't mean you're not shadow banned. Does not mean like you're, it didn't post that once, you have to remake it, whatever's going on. But I know a lot of people who have to have their backup accounts in case they do get deleted or completely kicked off the platform. And that sucks. Like, that's why we didn't have Instagram for, the first 2 years, because I was like, I'm not dealing with that battle. I can kind of get away with it on Facebook a little bit more. I was more comfortable with Facebook, if that ages me a little bit. But like, I was like, okay, I got that one. But Instagram was a whole nother beast, and TikTok is beautiful and I love it. I will never have the patience or ability to be a creator there. So I am your consumer. I'm very glad that you're out there and making it, but it's a huge uphill battle that isn't fair to those who are trained, who have years of education, and are just trying to make the population healthier. What the fuck?
Yes. Completely. You really said it. That is correct.
And that's the biggest reason I did the podcast, because I was like, I don't have to censor myself. I have had one platform denial, and I won't obviously bash that platform. And I have no clue if it was even just because we were sex education or not, but one denial out of how many other platforms were on, a couple, I think a dozen or more now, 13, 14 or something. So podcast is easier for me. I don't have to work around that censorship. However, sometimes it is hard to, because I do have sex in the name. So Salty Sex Cast. There would be no way I could ever run a Facebook ad or something like that, which I don't want to anyway. It doesn't get the people I want to listen to it. But just little things like that. It's kind of this interesting, how do I get over this? Well, what is the other creative way? So you've also been able to flex that creativity to get around a lot of that. But any failures, anything that just flopped and you're just like, that sucks. That was a lot of effort to get this message out.
I mean, honestly, with the Sex Ed show, we had a lot of experimentation, and I kind of assumed wrongly that like the videos would go viral on TikTok. I was like, oh, this production value is like super good. Like, we're going to have like, I just have seen really high quality videos on TikTok that I wanted to emulate and assume that because we were taking the right steps, oh, easy, this is going to go viral. People are going to duet this. Like, I had this assumption about it. And the reality was like, they were not doing very well on TikTok. Like, I just did an analysis on how many views on each platform the videos got, and Reels was our best platform. And so because we were able to partner with this really amazing account and person. Her name is Jess, and she runs So Informed. She has like 3 million Instagram followers, and we're kind of like friends. And so she reposted some of our content on her stories, and those videos like blew up. But other than that, like the way that the videos were viewed and the lack of like press, I was kind of hoping for this, like, oh, like this is our moment, right? Like we have really good content. We're like able to promote it on our platforms because we have like, 80,000 followers. Like this is going to be great. And like it really didn't blow up in the same way, or in the way that I expected it to. And so I kind of had to make decisions of like, okay, well, is it the way that we're posting? Is it because we baked in captions? Like it was a lot of kind of like, what's going on here?
Oh, it would drive me. It would keep me on at night. Was it the font? Was it this?
Yes.
Giving me anxiety.
It was a lot. And so I think like there are a lot of lessons learned about like, okay, like that was our first go at it. Maybe if we do another season, like I would change a couple things. Maybe it would be like more buzzy topics, or maybe it's like less of a production value, so you use our phones. Like I don't really know like what exactly we would change, but I do think that that was a big learning experience, for sure, and things that I would do differently next time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I had my wellness coaching business on Instagram. And I remember just I still have it there. It's just now it runs itself, whatever. But I would sit there and obsess over, okay, this hashtag worked and that one didn't. What's going on? What can I change? Oh, was it because of this? And it's hard. It's hard, especially when you really just have something to give back. And, in this weird social media consumer society, what is that ticket in? And the things that get that ticket, and you wish they didn't, right? Like, how is that one blowing up, or why, even just like like you were saying, the production value, someone who's on their phone for 30 seconds, whatever. And that's obviously, it would kill me. I'm so glad that you're doing it, because that's awesome. And that you have a really cool team behind you. I was looking at your website. So for anyone who's interested to follow along, that is sexedwithdb.com. And you have like your team broken down in the seasons that you had with your podcast. And I was like, holy crap, there's a ton of people behind this. That's a ton of people who want this message out. Like, that's so cool.
It is really cool. You're right. I mean, it's been kind of wild because we have had mostly different teams for every season. And the one constant person is my co-producer, Kathy, who is a lawyer by trade, by her day job. And she just like does this with me on the side because she's just like super passionate about it and into it. And I'm so lucky to have her. And, our teams over the seasons have had such awesome things to contribute and really different skills that they've brought to the table, and have just been really open to me being like, listen, we have, maximum amount of money is like a couple $1,000s from our advertisers. Like we can all split it, but it's like not that much money. And they've just all been down for that. And I've been really lucky that I've been able to have people trust like my vision and kind of like where I want to take it in order for them to kind of like be on board. It's been very special.
That's so cool. Just knowing again, they have that same belief in you and your message as you do. So it's really cool to have that and see that. And again, the Sex Ed Show, just like you were saying, the Sex Ed Show, just like you were saying, the production value, just everything that's behind it. It's really cool. Okay, I'm going to ask you to think rainbows and unicorns and perfect world scenario right now. In a perfect world, how would people get their sex education?
In a perfect world, sex ed would be taught from kindergarten until we die, literally. I mean, in school, literally, it would be kindergarten all the way through secondary education. It would be happening at home with parents, guardians, family members, people who, even if they don't have the answers, will provide love and support and really work to provide the young people that they're raising with resources and tools and education and information for them to have happy and healthy lives. And it would happen in the media. It would be happening in books and movies and TV shows and pretty much anywhere where we are interacting with people, it would be happening. So I think, like, first and foremost, school is where it's not happening most. And it's, yeah, super important that we continue to have these conversations and fight for that reality.
Even though that means maybe like putting us out of existence, right? Why would everyone need that? Why would anyone need the Salty Sex Cast show or Salty Sex Cast if they were all educated? School is a place that sex ed almost doesn't exist. It's this tiny little class, maybe 1 or 2 years near high school. Everyone squirms. You need a parent signature, at least in the state of Utah, where I'm from. So you need parents to opt you into sex ed. And then we're fighting against social media and like trying to get our message out. So like school doesn't want us, social media doesn't want us, but everyone needs us. I had an experience recently that I got invited to a lifestyle party, and it's this meet and greet. It was really, really cool. It was just like, hey, no pressure, just for people to get out who have the same lifestyle, right? And to get in to meet others. To get in, these are all of our rules. I guess not rules, but just like, hey, consent, touching, like compliments, communication, all these things that they went through to make someone feel comfortable, which I was like, can every bar have this? Because this is a lifestyle party where most people think, ew, gross. Those are just like sex crazed people who just like, don't know what they want, whatever, are healthier in these like boundaries and communication than, regular folks, because we don't know any better until we know better. I just thought it was really, really cool because like this dark, scary world that I was sheltered from forever is really bright and colorful. And everybody is so willing to encourage you to get educated and communicate and find all these answers for yourself. And what I thought was the right way, or what I told was the right way, was like, no, we're just going to stick our head in the sand, pretend nothing exists, and you're probably going to be unhealthy because of it.
Yeah, so. Wow. That's so cool that you went to that party. I've also never heard it described as a lifestyle party.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just like a Utah thing. It's interesting, different places. It's advertised at different ways, like where it's like polyamory, non-monogamy, or whatever. I know a lot of folks are now like avoiding swinger term just because it kind of, it's going through the wash right now, and it's kind of on its way out, an outdated term, because it holds a lot of negative things. And we're getting educated and we have more language. So yeah. Ethical non-monogamy is the lifestyle, or LS. I was like texting a friend and she was just like, oh yeah, how long have you been in the LS? And I was like, you're gonna have to tell me more, because I don't speak
the kids. Picking up what you're putting down here.
Yeah, so it was really funny, but I was like, oh yes, okay. I don't even know how to pinpoint myself sometimes, and other things. I'm like, someone else knows more about me. when they use language like that, but it was just funny. But really eye-opening on those who care for education, typically are shunned and quieted, just like I was saying at the beginning, how cool that you have this platform to give some of those hushed voices a voice. Hushed, yeah, stories a voice is what I was trying to say. Because I feel like typically they have most to say, and we have a lot to say, and we don't have those platforms. So are you ready to create like a new social media platform with me? And it's all going to be pro sex
All
education.
sex stuff. Oh man, that
Yes.
would be really awesome. Yeah, I really do wonder like if that is gonna happen on platforms like Instagram and Facebook. I mean, like it's gotta be a matter of time, right? I mean, maybe not. I could be completely off, but it just feels so outdated for the time that we're at. I think like there needs to be a better way to differentiate between completely inappropriate content for a certain age group and appropriate content for a certain age group. And I don't know what it's going to take for that to happen.
And who's even to judge the appropriate and inappropriate, for sure I can go on Pornhub and select yes, I'm 18 or older when I'm 13 years old kind of thing.
Right.
And so it's like even then, even if all it says is this is for this age range, or this message is best suited for this, and something like that. But it's really impressive that there hasn't been some type of social media like break off that's like, no, we're actually going to ban your unhealthy messages about, toxic masculinity or whatever, and these jokes that you think are great. That's what we're going to ban. And then we're going to have all these other things that are available, like, or just the things that are out there, the misinformation too. Okay. I don't want to go off on that forever, but it's surprising what the consumer wants too.
Yeah. I mean, don't really want to talk about Trump, but like if we think about like, the makeup of this country and like who, maybe you don't want to say you equate people who voted for him or who were okay with his misogyny and sexism and all the horrific things that he stands for with their personal values, but it's really hard for me not to equate those things. And when you look at the breakdown, like there are plenty of people in this country who, yes, are misinformed and have the ability to be informed at their fingertips, and they don't want to. They choose not to, or they choose to get their news from non-scientific sources on Facebook or however they get their news. And like that's hard. That's like a really hard thing to fight against. Bigotry is very challenging to break through. So I just think that with the misinformation stuff, like I think what is it? I think it's like less than 20 US states require sex ed to be medically accurate in schools. So it's like, okay, that needs to change first and foremost. Like it needs to, like there are all these things that need to happen in order for us to then reach people how we need to reach people. And we're just like not there yet as a community, as a country.
Yeah. It's, well, and the those who are looking for it or who are now finally ready for that message, it's really hard for them to find it. Why are they having to dig when, they're ready? Or that's what's frustrating to me is like, I get it. My message isn't for everybody. I have lived in Utah long enough to know that most people want to pretend it doesn't exist.
Right.
So it's when someone's like, hey, that was kind of interesting. I just heard something I've never heard of. No one actually painted consent like that for me. I would like more. Instead of hearing like, oh, consent's this stupid thing that you have to be like, you sure you're okay if I touch your thigh? you sure? And it just keeps going on and on, right? And where consent can be sexy, and consent looks like so many different things. Consent also looks like, accepting someone's no and learning what those cues are from somebody else and how to read those, right? But I'm like, who sat there and poo-pooed on it that now we have to like rewrite that whole script? Anyway, I'm going off on a complete tangent.
No,
But,
I completely get what you're saying. I like totally agree. It's really tough, and like we kind of put ourselves in this position to fight this battle, right? Like no one in like, I don't know, like tech has to like worry about this. Like my brother is a physical therapist. Like this will not be a part of his battle that he has.
mm-mm.
Like no one thinks of physical therapy and is like, well, that doesn't help anyone. That's inappropriate. Like that's just something that we have accepted as like a way to heal our bodies when there is trauma or when there is need for that. And it's the same kind of thing where like mental health stigma, right? Like that stigma is shifting and changing. And I think like people in the public eye have done a really, really great job with being open and honest about their public health issues. And I think that makes people comfortable about expressing that. And
Mhm.
so I think like it's shifting, but maybe it's just shifting a little too slowly, like for our desire.
Right. When we have such a passion for this, we're like, why can't you just take what I'm giving you? I'm shoving it in your face.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to love you. Just let me love you, kind of thing. But I was just thinking about that when you were just talking about, we need a celebrity endorser. Like, who would be our celebrity spokesperson to talk about how cool sex ed is and that we all need to know this? But it was just making me laugh when you were talking about like people in the public eye and mental health. And we're getting there. We really are. But it does take a village. And so I'm so glad I have folks like you to lean on, to watch, how you pave that way, and, what works for you, what messages are hitting, how can I support that, sharing for everyone who's listening. Sharing is caring. And, understanding how much work goes behind sharing a very simple message on period health. It doesn't even have to be like big no or super, half the population goes through this, right? We have no choice. And so, that uphill battle to share that message, how easy is it to like or share, follow, support that for those who really do just want a healthier society. Sure, there's maybe a little bit of ego in here and sharing my message. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, if not, I would have shared it somewhere else. I would have been a high school teacher, help
Oh, of
teacher.
course. My name is in my own show. So I completely get it.
Totally. But for the most part, it really is because we're passionate. We've seen the negative effects of not having proper sex education, seen and heard stories of people, just like you said, when you were in Israel, and knowing how some people live without any choice on their education, let alone now being educated and then getting a choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Human right on that is gone.
Completely.
So hearing those stories, knowing what is out there and how easy it is when we are consumers on social media to follow those who are fighting that good fight.
Yeah. I mean, would be happy to share my socials if that's cool.
Please do.
If I
Please
could
do.
share with people. Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough, right? Like there is almost this like oversaturation of content. But if you did like our chat today, if you're listening, you're like, where can I get more of this stuff? Please follow us on TikTok. We are at Sex Ed with DB on Instagram, at Sex Ed with DB podcast. If you're on Facebook and Twitter, find us by searching our name there. Check out our website, listen to our podcast anywhere where you hear podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, wherever. And yeah, we're going to be coming out with a new season 6 of the podcast come spring of 2022. So stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned. Any little hint on what to get excited for? I know it's in a couple of months, but
yeah, I mean, I think like
make any promises.
Yeah, no, I think we're figuring out like who we really want to interview and like what kinds of stories we want to tell in the next couple months. I think someone we know that we want to invite back. I don't know if you have seen the show on Hulu called Rami. It's a super good show. It's about a Muslim American family living in New Jersey, and the main character's name is Rami, and his life is very messy, and it's about religion and spirituality and drugs and being a young person and love and just like trying to figure out your life. And the person who plays his best friend on the show and is one of his best friends in real life, his name is Steve Way, and he is a disabled person and he's a disability rights activist. And we had him on last season, and he was just super inspiring, just like a really interesting, funny dude. And I think he is coming back next season to talk about disability rights and his work. And so if that is of interest to you, please tune in. And yeah, once again, like, thank you again so much for having me on and for doing this again, as you mentioned, in Utah. I don't take that lightly. I think like when I am in Brooklyn, New York, and everyone around me like pretty much agrees with my messaging around sex ed, I can't imagine what it would be like to do it in a place where you are getting pushback and you are getting people in your own community who are telling you that what you're doing is wrong or not true or not how it should be happening. So I think there's a lot of bravery and courageousness that comes along with what you're doing. And so keep on keeping on.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's helpful to know that I've got, again, people who back me, and there's other people, and lots of friends, right? You know, Salty Sexcast with Mariah and friends. That if you don't want to trust my word, there's plenty other people that you can go listen to. So, you know, go check out the Sex Ed show, or sorry, Sex Ed with DB show. Nope, I'm fucking up all your names. I knew I was going to do this, and I told you that was going to happen. I was like, no,
it's literally all the same thing. It's totally fun.
Okay. Sex Ed with DB podcast, the Segs Ed show.
That's it.
TikTok, and that's it's storytelling. It's visual storytelling.
Yeah, it's like a scripted video series is how we
There we go. I'm like, podcast world outside of what? No, yeah. I don't know. YouTube. So yes, love it. I'm so glad that we got to connect, and thank you so much for reaching out and coming on the show, sharing your message. And you know, social media, what the fuck? Stop censoring us is all we can say. Thanks, though.
Please do. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And again, thank you so much for having me. This has been such a nice conversation. Always a great time to chat with another fellow sex educator doing awesome work.
Thank you. Thank you. And for all my lovely folks listening, if you're not following us on social media, we could use the love, because like you heard, we are censored and it's an uphill battle for us to just get anything out to you. Super fun news. If you don't follow our social media, we have a new Etsy store, and we have like shirts and shit. So go get your stuff. I have a taint towel out there. So if you need a towel for your taint, it says the Salty Sex Cast on it. And,
awesome.
You know, there's bodily autonomy shirts, because you know me, and I like to tell everybody they're not the boss of my body. So you can wear that and be cool like me. Anyway, again, patreon.com/Salty Sexcast is the way you can support us monthly. And love you all. See you all in 2 weeks. Bye.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Salty Sexcast. Ready for round 2? Find us on Facebook.